Welcome back everyone to more iRacing here at Knee Gaming. In today's video, we're headed to Chicagoland Speedway in the Cup cars for a 60 lap race. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about the track itself and why we're headed to Chicagoland instead of Las Vegas Motor Speedway, where NASCAR is headed in the real world this week. Well, number one, Las Vegas does not have AI available, so there is no way that we could do that track. So I decided to choose another 1.5 mile track, and one specifically that's not getting a lot of love from NASCAR in the real world these days. So we're going to have some fun with Chicagoland. Chicagoland as a 1.5 mile track, very different than Homestead that we did in our previous video. This track is wide open. It's very wide, plenty of room to race. However, there are a lot of issues with the AI at this track. In fact, I had to try at least 10 or 11 races to finally get something that I could share with you guys. It was wreck after wreck after wreck. The AI at this track, needless to say, they need a lot of work. A lot of the issues I had were at the start. Generally what happens at the start of these races with the AI, and I like to start in the back just so that I can get a good view of what's going on with the AI and their behavior. But starting in the back, the outside lane will take off first. They take off seemingly just fine until it's time to get to turn one. Then for whatever reason, they seem to slam on the brakes and we have a wreck. So not sure what's going on there, but that's generally how that works. The inside lane, however, is different. They don't get going on the green flag. They actually slow way down, causing sometimes a pile up, and then they get going, but again, once we get to turn one, there's usually a wreck. So if you can get through turn one, you may be okay, and you may be able to have a fun race. But the start of the race has caused me so much grief. In fact, at one point, I just almost decided that I wasn't going to do this track at all because it was really ruining the fun for me with the AI having so many issues. Now, one more issue that I want to talk about, and something you're going to see in today's video once we get into the racing. Another big issue for the AI is they don't seem to recognize that the player car is there, particularly on the entry of turn one. Now, they do a pretty good job of spreading out and giving each other room as far as side-by-side racing, but the entry of turn one, they want to swing out to the wall to get the best entry, but of course you can't really do that if you're running side-by-side, and particularly not if you're running three wide. So that's another issue I've had where the AI will simply run me over on corner entry as they're determined that they're going to get all the way out to the wall to get that nice big arc into turn one. So a few things to keep in mind as you watch today's race. Thankfully, we were finally able to get a race in. But before we get into that race, let's run very quickly through the different options here at the track. Of course, we're going to be running at Chicagoland. Weather is all standard. I have not touched that at all. Race sessions, we're going to be doing a 60 lap race. Now I wanted to run long enough that it corresponded to a full fuel run or very close to a full fuel run. In the future, as I mentioned before, I do want to get into longer and longer races, or at least some of the time do some longer races, but I'm trying to inch my way up toward that. And a good way to do that is to run a full fuel run. Let's see how the cars react, see if we can get some good racing in for that distance, and then we'll go beyond that and look at green flag pit stops and so on in the future. So 60 laps is a very good distance, plenty of time to run on some worn tires so that you can get an idea of the speed differential between the AI on new tires versus old tires. And that's something we're going to talk about throughout the entirety of the race. Now, as far as race options, I have disabled the car damage. That is important for this track because what I really want is to make sure that every one of the AI cars, including us as well, is at full strength. I'm not interested in a bunch of cars taking damage and being slower for the remainder of the race. We want to see how the AI perform at full strength. So that's why I have disabled the damage. And again, we'll see some instances there where that's going to come in handy. We'll be in the Cup car. Now, the opponents will be using the BR 2021 Cup car set or collection that is available through the website for Trading Paints. So if you're interested in that, I have that collection that I've put together. Just keep in mind, I did all of the AI ratings, and those will continue to change in the future, I'm sure. But I have tweaked the AI ratings, but I have not done any of the paint schemes. A huge thank you to the wonderful painters and artists that share their work for people like me who have no artistic skill whatsoever, so that I can enjoy these wonderful paint schemes that you've put together. So a huge thank you to those of you who share your work through Trading Paints. As far as track options, let's go back to opponents just for a moment. Right now in the car set, I only have 31 cars. I do want to add some to that, maybe some legends, some retired drivers, something like that, particularly the ones where I really love some of these old paint schemes. So I may be adding to that in the future, but for right now we have 34. We'll be starting in the rear, no qualifying or practice. And then our skill spread for today's race, 45% to 70%, a little lower than I normally like to go on a track like this, but the cars are so fast on new tires here. The AI are so fast. And remember, Chicago is a track that you can run wide open on new tires pretty easily. So I was running laps wide open, and they were still pulling away from me. So I decided to back it down some so that we could at least have a shot on new tires to keep up with them, if not pass them. So 45 to 50 is the spread I'm looking for. And track options now. Rolling starts, double file. Again, all of this is default. None of this really comes into play for the most part, since we don't really have a lot of cautions in these races, and hopefully none if I can get by with it. As far as track conditions, again, everything is default until we get down to the time of day. Time of day is a noon start time, which is my preferred time, as opposed to a little bit later in the afternoon. But other than that, I believe everything is all set. Let's get to the racing. As we enter the back stretch and get ready to take the green here shortly, let's talk about during today's race some of the frustrations I have with the AI, particularly at this track. We'll talk a little bit about setup. We'll talk a little bit about the future. We'll talk about a lot of things. But for right now, let's focus on the start. So at this point, I've tried like 10 races at this track, and here's what usually happens at the start.
Getting ready.
The outside lane usually gets off to a great start until they get to turn one, then they wreck. The inside lane generally comes to a stop nearly.
Pace cars
all right,
in.
here we go. There we go. There you see the outside lane.
Green, green, green.
Outside lane's already gone. Inside lane almost comes to a stop. You see a few collisions or near collisions. Let's see what happens when we get to turn one. There's usually a big wreck. All right, so we have managed to get through turn one. Right now, I'm spending more time just watching the AI and their behavior than I am actually driving my own car. So we're going to have to be careful with that. But you can see these guys I have set them up to be aggressive because I have found that the alternative is that they do tons of brake checking and have some really weird behavior. So I prefer this, but no matter what I do, they seem to have a lot of issues at this track. Oh, I saw contact up there at the entry of turn one, but no wreck. And no, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to turn off the damage, because right now we're just trying to see how the AI react, and I really don't want to start losing a bunch of cars to damage. We want them to be at full strength in these races, so we're going to ignore damage for right now. We're going to remove that variable. Now these guys are unbelievably fast on new tires. Unbelievably fast. In fact, that's the reason why I ultimately had to reduce the overall strength of the field as I did. Normally I like to be up around 80 or so, 75 to 80 as a start, and that usually gets me in the ballpark. And then I can adjust from there. But here I had to continue coming down because I just couldn't keep up with these guys. Even though this is a track where you can easily be full throttle on new tires, but I just couldn't keep up with them even at full throttle. I mean, even the back of the field was running away from me. But you can see now they're starting to come back to me a little bit.
Inside, clear.
All right, when we get to turn three, I'm going to go high.
got one inside.
Let's see, still really loose on these new tires.
There's the bottom.
Trying to keep it out of the fence there. But as the car gets a little wear on the tires, the car becomes a lot better to handle. But right now it is a handful until that starts to happen. The setup I'm using, I did start out with the Chicagoland Setup that iRacing provides.
Stay high.
But I had to tighten it up.
Stay right there.
And I had to tighten it up because it was just way too unstable for me. It was just so loose, I could barely drive it. Particularly on corner entry, it was a mess. So I decided just to bite the bullet, tighten the car up. And that's probably going to come back to haunt me over the course of a long run, as we're seeing here today. Hopefully we can get through 60 laps. Really hope. As I mentioned, I've done this, I've attempted to do this race about 10 times. And I have yet to make 60 laps. In fact, I've yet to come close. So we'll see. A variety of different reasons for that, mostly around the start. The first few corners of the race is generally what causes the problem. All right, 66, get it contained. Looked like he was sliding backwards there.
Clear outside.
All right, they do not like 3 wide, so I might be pushing my luck.
Stay on the bottom, 3 wide.
He didn't give me room. He ain't giving me much.
Hold your line. Got one outside.
But he gave me just enough to get through there. Woo. I think we were clear there, but just to be sure, I didn't want to go all the way out to the wall. But the car handling will come to me the longer we run. After about 10 or 15 laps, it'll start to feel much better, which is the way I prefer it, because I'm more of a long run guy. I prefer more endurance style racing, much longer races, into the multiple hours, and the longer the better. So I'm all about long runs, trying to find your rhythm, try to set a pace, take care of the car, you know, that kind of thing, rather than let's just go and risk everything for a single lap.
Stay low.
So when given the opportunity, I'm going to choose a car that's more stable over a long line. Come on, 47.
Outside.
He was migrating down the track and slowing down. Great combination. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar with iRacing and have not been a member there before, you'll see a couple of pieces of information available to you on the screen, other than just simply looking at my steering wheel and dashboard. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see the inputs. That would be your steering. You can see the steering angle I'm using, as well as the brake and gas pedal. So you can see how I'm driving the car, essentially, by looking down there. On the right-hand side of the screen at the bottom, you're going to see the live timing and scoring. That's where I will glance, if need be. Like right now, I mean, we know exactly where the 47 is, as well as the cars in front of it. But over a very long race, it comes in handy because it gives you some idea of where everybody else is and who you're gaining on, who's gaining on you, and so on. There are definitely more screens and more information available other than the live timing and scoring, or what they call the relative screen. But for our purposes today, this is really the most prudent.
Inside.
All right, now one of my favorite things to do at this track is run a higher line. Now, higher here, we're not talking out by the wall, as much as I would love to be out by the wall.
Keep it on top, clear inside.
We're talking generally the second groove, sometimes the third groove, depending on traffic and how things are going. But it is a lot of fun to get up a little bit higher on the track and see what we can make happen.
Outside. Stay low. Stay on the bottom.
All right, things are really starting to spread out, but you see pockets of cars where there's 3, 4, 5 cars all racing hard together. That's usually where we have trouble at this track in particular. This track is not getting a lot of love from NASCAR in real life anymore. And so we'll see how much love it gets from iRacing in the virtual world. Because it is definitely in need of some updates, particularly with the start.
Clear to the bottom.
You can see these guys get all single file around the bottom, and we can make some hay on the second. I want to say the high side. It's about as high as the groove is going to get for the most part.
Clear.
So it will be, realistically speaking, the high side.
Inside.
But I'd really like to see some of the AI. Of course, they're going to stick to the preferred groove if at all possible. They don't move around yet, but I'm really hoping that they will get that added into the game, because that really changes everything. When you go into a corner, and I've talked about this a lot in our NASCAR Heat series.
Stay right there.
For all its flaws, the NASCAR Heat series with the AI, it is a beautiful thing to go into a corner and see the AI just sort of fan out.
Got one inside. Here in the middle. 3 wide. Inside. Still there.
And run all over the place. Ooh, watch out.
Keep it on top.
There's that beautiful 43 paint scheme.
Clear to the bottom.
I'm telling you, that paint scheme, I may keep that in the car set. That is just it is one of my favorite paint schemes. I'm not even sure why.
Clear.
But just something about the look of it just speaks to me. To the point where I don't even want to race that paint scheme, because I want to be able to see it on the track.
Got one inside. Keep high.
Every time I come up on that 34 car, I think it is blank, and that the game hasn't loaded in the paint scheme for it. Because at certain portions, if you're looking at certain portions of the car, it does look like that's the case. Now the 42 car, this is an interesting case, because this paint scheme is a wonderful paint scheme, which is why I chose it. Beautiful paint scheme on the car. This is one that I will probably replace in the car set at some point. Now, I do plan on leaving Ross Chastain's driver ratings the same, but I will probably replace this car with one of his real-world paint schemes in the future. But I was just having too much fun when I saw that watermelon scheme. And so I had to choose it. But again, that's one, as I mentioned in the previous video, this car set, this collection is by no means complete, and I will never touch it again. It would not surprise me at all to continue making adjustments to the AI ratings as time goes on. So if you do choose to favorite this car set and use it for yourself, then you might want to make a copy of it just so that you can use the copy without any changes if you like it as is.
Got one inside.
24 jumped right down in front of the 11.
Stay right there.
All right, we have now reached 1/3 of the race distance. We need that 24 to get back down to the bottom.
Still there.
And he did exactly that, right in front of the 11. So no good for the 11, but good for us if I can get to his outside. Nope, can't quite get there. In fact, we're going to lose this battle to the 11. There we go. Some good momentum. I knew we were faster than the 24. It's just a matter of finding the right situation to be able to get by him. We got 60 laps here. We're only 1/3 of the way through. Of course, the tires are going to continue to wear. But now, the setup is feeling the best it's going to feel. The car is really starting to come to me. That second groove really feels fun to race in this car with this setup. You hear me playing with the throttle there? That wasn't because of handling, that was because of the 6 car. I could see he was struggling and we were coming up on him pretty quick.
Outside.
So I was trying to make sure I didn't get right up on him and get ourselves in trouble. Now, one way that we can definitely get ourselves in trouble is if we're underneath another car and I start to push too hard. Then we can get ourselves in trouble and end up spinning out. I have never been a fan of the tires in iRacing, and nothing has changed my mind on that.
Got one outside.
Sometimes it just feels like the grip is there, and then all of a sudden it's just gone.
Keep to the bottom. Clear outside.
But for right now, the car is feeling really good. So we have made our way into the top 15. So this is going a long way to show you how different their speed is on new tires versus what happens to them as the tires wear. This generally happens at every track, but there are a few tracks where it's exaggerated. This is one of those tracks.
Keep low. Here's the top.
So far, so good. Bubba Wallace running inside the top 15 there. I'm sure all you Bubba Wallace fans, and particularly a few in general where he gets the number from, are really wanting him to see, him get inside that top 10 and start fighting for some top 5s and victories. Might take him a little while. You know, everything's new equipment, new people, new everything. So as they get everything put together, maybe they'll be able to figure some things out. Because they're definitely aligned with a great team, no doubt about that. All right, so we're not that far from the top 10. Who is the top 10? Christopher Bell, okay. Actually, I was thinking it was the 48 up there. But it turns out it's Christopher Bell who is right in front of us. All right, you see the outside lane getting a nice run off the corner. However, the bottom groove is generally going to win.
Keep low.
Currently, boy, I can't wait till that changes. I cannot wait until we get these tracks, the dynamic tracks, to where they actually work. And until the AI will actually use the groove, whichever groove is best, as the groove moves around. That is amazing. And not just here, I'm talking about on the dirt as well.
3 wide, you're on the bottom.
Right,
Hold your line.
Not going to give me a whole lot of room, just 3 wide.
Clear to the top.
Okay, we survived. I was trying not to push the car. I was trying to let it just basically float through the corner as best I could.
Good job.
All right, so we have made our way inside the top 10, at least for now. Let's see how far forward we can go. So if you take a look in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm actually going to try to move this up a little bit and put us at the bottom of that window so we can see a little farther forward and see just how far these guys are ahead. So we see that the top 5 is about 3 seconds out. And in fact, if we look ahead of ourselves on the track, you can see the top 5 right up there in front of us, as these guys are having quite a nice battle. We're only a couple laps away from halfway, so things are going really well for us. Started in the rear, shotgun on the field, and now here we are in the top 10. So again, just gives you an idea of how the tire wear affects the AI at this particular track. 48's got to be feeling kind of lonely out there, because if he looks in his mirror, he's going to see me closing in on him. And he also knows that he's not really closing in on the guys in front of him, so he's kind of in no man's land right now. Now, in a long race, if you're talking a normal NASCAR race, it's a great place to be. Where he was, he had a nice little bubble there. I call it the Mark Martin spot on the track.
Okay, we're halfway to the finish.
Oh, hello, he came right down in front of us. Yikes. Had to get out of the gas there to avoid him. But Mark Martin used to always, during a long race, you would get a long green flag run, and you would find Mark Martin had carved out a little spot on the track for himself, where nobody was in front of him, nobody was behind him. It was just Mark running laps. Taking care of his equipment, taking care of his car, logging laps, and learning. And that is a beautiful place to be on a long run. Unfortunately for us, we're not really doing a long run here. It's a long green flag run, but it's not a long race. At least not yet. Again, I do plan on doing more of those, but this track, as much as I wanted to do maybe something like an hour long race, it just wasn't going to work out. There were just way too many issues at this track. Thankfully, so far in this race, we've made it to halfway. No caution flags. Cautions are on. But we have not had any caution flags, and hopefully it will remain that way, because I really want to finish this off without rebunching the field and having everybody come in for new tires. Obviously, new tires is not going to be good for us. And the best enjoyment for me comes from the older tires. So you can see now Martin Truex in front of us in 4th position at the top of that list in the bottom right-hand corner. We are closing in very quickly on this bunch. Very quickly. We have made up a lot of time. So that makes me wonder if these guys aren't being held up by lap traffic up here. It's definitely far enough into the race that you would expect to see some of that. But right now I can't really tell. But we have caught them, basically. Now I don't know where the leader is. Oh, look at that. 12 going way high there as they were 3 wide. 9's going to sneak by him. Love to see the 12 being up there. Unfortunately, I just wish it was a little stronger, a little more speed up there to be found. But we can hope for the future. Let's try to go to the outside a little bit here. All right, you can see I've caught these guys, but then we get into the whole aero aspect of this. We got the aero push in full effect with these cars. So I'm going to try to use this outside as best I can, but right now I'm sort of stuck. So we're going to have to figure out a way to make this happen, because I'm definitely faster than these guys. But just like in the real world, you're faster than these guys, but you really have a hard time figuring out a way around them.
Keep it on top.
The air is playing games with you, and it's certainly not your friend.
Still there. Keep it on top.
Great run here for us. Now we lose our drafting partners on the straightaway, but let's see what these guys do when it comes to the corner. I expect them all to go back down to the bottom.
Got one inside, still there.
All right, that a great corner for us there. I didn't get the entry right.
Clear.
Oh, the 0-0.
Inside.
All right, discretion is the better part of valor. I backed out of it there.
Clear inside.
I saw the 12 coming on the bottom, and rather than trying to cut him off and potentially creating a rip, I decided,
got one outside.
Let's just back out of it there.
Stay on the bottom.
Right, so we'll all clear the 0-0, except for maybe the 1 car. And now we'll get back to some green flag racing. All right, so we moved up a spot, at least temporarily. We'll see what the 1 car does from behind us. But for right now, we moved up to 8th, and we can see that second position is 1.5. A little over 1.5 seconds ahead of us right now.
Inside. Still there.
But I don't know about the leader. I'm actually hoping that the leader is way out.
Stay right there. Clear.
In fact, yeah, Kyle Busch, 4.5 seconds out. I like having that rabbit out there to chase. The last thing I want to do is be able to take the lead this early in the race. But he is way out there. I'm not sure we're going to catch that guy. But right now, this is the most fun to drive the car for me. This is when I like it, when the tires have lost some grip. This is the way I wish the car is handled sort of all the time in real life as well as in the sim, where you were down on grip and you couldn't hold it wide open through the corners. You actually had to drive the car through the corners and figure out when to lift, when to get back to the gas, all those sorts of fun things that actually let you drive the car rather than just foot to the floor. All right, so we've now reached 2/3 point of the race, 42 of 60 laps. And I'm looking at this point, I know I'm closing in on the guys in front of me. You know, we had that mess with the lap car that didn't go so well. So we lost a little bit of time there, but now I'm coming back to it. So we know we've got that. But if I look at Kyle Busch, he's holding relatively steady, right around 4.5 seconds. So we'll see how that changes as time goes on. If he's out there in clean track, then there's no reason for that to really come down any, because I'm the one having to deal with the dirty air right now. I'm trying to figure out if I can get by all these guys, because this is a bit of a mess. These guys are running side by side, which means that I'm going to have to go either to the bottom and bide my time to get through, or I can try to go to the top and make it 3 wide.
Stop.
And the fun side of my brain says, by all means, let's go 3 wide. Let's get to the top, see if we can make it happen. All right, I'm closing in on Timmy Hill. But oh wait, never mind. He's 2.5 seconds out. Okay, my bad. I thought he was right up there at the front of the pack. That actually might be 19 car that I'm seeing up there. I thought that was the lap car. Turns out it's not. So we got a little bit of time here before we get to Old Timmy Hill. Yeah, car's still handling fine, but I am definitely feeling the effects of the air. So now I got to figure out how to make this happen. Or if I can make it happen, if I've got enough speed. Because the car is definitely losing the nose. That is killing me on corner exit. Now I'm going to have to start looking behind me, because the 12 car is
Inside.
We already know he's aggressive.
Keep it on top.
You can see right there, I'm starting to lose the nose on corner exit. So, oh, easy now, 12.
Right
easy,
there.
easy. There's only so much room I can give you.
Got one inside. Clear to the bottom.
All right, so have we reached the point where everything has equalized? You see the one car coming back by to claim his position. Took him a while to get here, but he made it. Because right now I can't do anything with these guys. I'm going to have to change up some things in how I'm driving the car to try and hopefully get through these guys. Forget about getting to the lead. This is all about, can we get, say, to the top 5? Which is in this same pack with us. All right, we might be able to get around the 2 if we can follow the 1 car through. 1 car's having troubles of his own. Push the 2 car way up the track
outside. Still there.
Yep, don't like getting down on that apron. It was almost catastrophic.
Stop.
That's the same thing I'm thinking.
Got one outside.
When I'm seeing the AI go down there too. Like, please don't mess this up. All right, 66, I really need you to stay up top. I really need you to stay up there, please.
Stay on the bottom. Clear outside.
And once again, the lap traffic. Whew, that was close. That was very close. All right, we're coming up on 10 to go now. And this is where we got to make something happen. I mean, we're firmly inside the top 10. That's not an issue. We made it from dead last to the top 10. So that is not a problem. But can we get maybe to the top 5? As it starts to thin out a little bit, the air gets a little bit better for me. Is it going to help my car enough
Then it goes straight.
that I can make this happen?
Outside.
All right, thank you very much. Oh, 1 car, I had to drive it down in there, and that hurt. It gave me some room. Now I'm going to pay the price because the 2 cars coming.
Got one inside. Keep it on top.
Yeah,
Stay
he's
right
got it.
there. Clear.
So there you have it. That is the good and the bad of trying to make a pass when you're running this close and the arrow push is this much fun. You just gotta love it. So now we'll back up. We'll try it again. Because I still think we're faster than these guys. We're going to run out of time to get as many positions as I would have liked. But I still think we're faster than these guys. But we're all kind of in the same boat right now. We're all stuck together. I do see some good racing there in front of us, though. A few cars in front of us. I can't tell exactly who that is. Looks like we've got another lap car, DJ McLeod. We're going to be on him shortly. It would be really nice if he was the car really high there. He may be. Wouldn't it be nice if the lap cars would just pick a spot on the track where nobody's running and run there? Right now we got him sort of trapped up there. Sure, he would like to get back down. He may, yep, he's got his opportunity now. All right, let's see who wins this battle. No, I thought the one car might be able to get by on the outside since the two would be blocked on the bottom. But it looks like
outside.
That's not the way it's going to work out.
Stay low. We're almost out of fuel, but it looks like we'll make it to the end. We're running low on fuel. Watch the fuel.
All right, it says we're running low on fuel now. Here we go. Let's go over to F4.
5 to go to strike.
All right, 5. Oh, we're maybe just going to make it. Maybe. Look at that. 5 to go with the stripe. And we were at about 5.5 estimated laps. Key being estimated. So let's go back to our. So now we know what we've got. Now I'm not coming into pit. We're going to finish this race, however. Either we're going to run out of fuel. What's going to be interesting to see is does any of the AI come into pit? So keep an eye out the driver's side window as we come off of turn 4 and down the front stretch to see if anybody pits. The other way we'll know is we'll start to see the pitting messages at the top of the screen. The AI are really good about letting you know these things. It definitely does help. But we're going to see, does everybody try to make it all the way? Does anybody come in for a splash? Nobody came in to cut this run in half, so nobody went aggressive with it like that. But we'll see. Does everybody make it? Oh, yikes. Oh,
clear inside.
Okay, the one car was trying to run me into the wall there. Like, he pretended like he didn't even know I was there. Unfortunately, that's not the first time that's happened. And I'm sure it will not be the last. So be careful.
We're running low on fuel. We should be able to make it to the end. Need to go subscribe.
He's killing me with that message. We're running real low on fuel, which has me worried to death. But then he tells me, but I think we're going to make it. Like, yeah, that's really helping me out a lot. It's helping my confidence. It's great. All right, so at this point, these guys have now, they're pushing back ahead of me. So I was faster for a good portion of the race.
You have about 1 lap of fuel left. White flag next time.
Oh, look at that. Seriously? 1 lap of fuel? 1.3, and this is the last lap. Okay, so now do we make it? Do we start to have hiccups? And everybody in front of us is still moving right along. We have not gained any spots from anybody coming in for a splash and go or running out of gas. So it looks like everybody's just like us. They were running it to the end. Any hiccups? There we go. just as we come to the start-finish line. I did not expect that.
It's over.
I had estimated that a full
Great job,
fuel
driver.
run would be about 65 laps. Now again, that was just a guess on my part. I really didn't know what it was going to be, but my guess was about 65. So I wanted us to be able to do a full fuel run pretty close, but I didn't want to get into pit stops. So there you have it. We are out of gas, but we had just enough to make it. So if we'd had to run 61 laps, what would we have done? What would everybody have done? Because my guess is that nobody was going to make it. So overall, the race finally, once I was able to get everything set up properly and, you know, made a few tweaks here and there, once all of that actually worked itself out, it ended up being a very fun race. All right, so I'm just going to pull over here to the side, get to our pit box, and we are going to call it a day. So thank you very much for joining me, and stick around as we will continue our gameplay of iRacing.